Okay, so what's up, Dayton Bulldogs with another video, and tonight we are gonna be doing reaction to the brand new Style Theory video. This one will be Style Theory. Why does everyone keep stealing from POPFLEX? Let's see and find out what this will be about. Why does everyone keep stealing from POPFLEX Style Theory? So before we get into it, make sure to like, comment, subscribe to us what you want us to act next. Let's see and find out what this will be about. 3, 2, 1. Also hit that bell icon so you will get notified whenever we upload, post and go live. When they learn about us, go look at old videos. Come back to this video, like and comment on all the videos including this video, and also let that be known in the comments down below if you're new to Dayton Bulldogs, so we can welcome you into Dayton Bulldogs, and there's no cap as well. Now let's get right into it, see and find out what this will be about. 3, 2, 1, let's go.
Do you know everything there is to know about the POPFLEX copyright saga? Well, you may think so, but I promise you this goes way deeper than you could ever imagine. Hello Internet, welcome to Style Theory, the show that's about to spill all the tea. And I hope that you are thirsty. Fellow creator Cassie Ho, aka Blogilates, is being put through the ringer, all because she made a skirt so cute and not even Taylor Swift herself could resist. From dupes to lawsuits, Shein to Nordstrom, this is one of the biggest legal battles in recent fashion history. And her ongoing story of being an indie brand taking on the titans of the fashion industry is one that has spanned years, and one that you need to hear. So sit back, grab a drink and a snack, and prepare to do a deep dive into the POPFLEX copyright saga. Right after I make a doctor's appointment.
Bless you.
Sorry y'all, flu season has really hit me hard. But thanks to ZocDoc, who's our sponsor for today's episode, this will only take a minute. Usually getting a doctor's appointment takes so long enough that by the time I actually get an appointment, I'm not even sick anymore. But with ZocDoc, I get the care I need when I need it. ZocDoc is a free, yes, you heard me right, free website where you can easily find and compare in-network doctors without sacrificing quality care. They work with your insurance to find someone that fits your specific needs, whether that includes location, specialty, or language, among other things. And with over 100,000 providers across nearly every specialty, there is definitely a doctor on ZocDoc for you. Listen, I am really picky when it comes to doctors. I want someone who's going to listen to my needs and not just rush me out the door. As someone with a weaker immune system, I mean, I've spent most of this year sick, y'all. It is rough out here. ZocDoc means that I can finally find someone who specializes in immunocompromised people. And that means a doctor who can meet me where I'm at in my health journey, which is key to getting the care that I need. Plus, I've always wanted to find an allergy specialist who can hopefully tell me why my nose seems to only ever operate at around 6% capacity. Yeah, I don't know, but we're gonna find out because ZocDoc can hook me up with a doctor who understands what's going on up in here. And they can do it without the hassle and runaround from my insurance. It's really that fast and that easy to get started and book your first appointment right now. All you have to do is go to ZocDoc.com/thestyletheorist or scan the QR code on screen to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. And remember how I said I've been sick lately? Well, that explains why the voice in our first section is a little bit deeper.
Recently, OG YouTuber Cassie Ho, aka Blogilates, lit up the internet by calling out Shein, a $100 billion fast fashion company, for stealing her design and then reselling it on their massively popular website. And this is far from the first time that Shein's gotten into hot water for this kind of behavior. Over and over again, they've been put on blast for outright theft. And yet, there they are, still going strong, still uncancelled and with a beefy bottom line to boot. How is that possible? What is really going on here? Is Shein's behavior here actually legal? And if it is, what can any of us do to stop it?
Okay.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Style Theory, the show that always shows up for a trend, fashionably late. But enough about my time management skills, let's talk about the dumpster fire that is Shein, the world's largest fashion retailer as of 2022. A brand that is now valued at $100 billion. Not bad considering that this thing was founded just 15 years ago. Why then am I calling it a dumpster fire? Listen, I try not to hate on people or brands without due cause. And with Shein, oh boy, does Shein have itself a CVS receipt-sized list of questionable practices. From smaller grievances like badly made items and low-quality fabrics, to claims of the huge negative impact of their manufacturing practices on the environment, to accusations of violating the human and labor rights of their employees in order to meet their grueling production demands. It is some truly awful stuff that many channels and news outlets have covered much more thoroughly than I plan to do today. The reason I'm talking about Shein today is because of my friend, Cassie Ho. She recently put up a post calling out the brand for ripping off her designs. If you don't know Cassie, she's an exercise and activewear guru who built up not just her own YouTube channel and fitness line with Blogilates, but then successfully launched another brand focused on activewear and accessories called POPFLEX. Suffice it to say, Cassie knows her stuff when it comes to design, which is why when this knockoff of her POPFLEX pirouette skirt popped up on Shein, she took to the internet to call him out and spill some piping hot tea. I'll link to Cassie's blog post in the description so you can get the full rundown, but here are the main takeaways that we need to talk about for our episode today. Cassie first announced her design on August 15th, 2022 to enormous fanfare. The thing sold out almost immediately and was released in another wave on January 5th, 2023. On January 28th, a mere 23 days later, Shein put their version up for sale on the site. The first thing that Cassie calls out is the copying of the design. A ballet-inspired mesh skirt overlaid with workout shorts with a built-in side pocket, topped off with a tie at the high-rise waist. Check, and check. But that's not all. She then brings up a second, equally interesting point here, the photos. From using a model that looks like Cassie to recreating the style of the official POPFLEX photos, Shein was not exactly being subtle in their recreations of not just the product itself, but also the marketing materials around it. As I mentioned before, Cassie's not the first person to be copied by Shein, not by a long shot. In July of 2021, the designer behind the brand, Alexia, tweeted this side-by-side comparison of their handmade sweater versus the item that was being sold by Shein. Just a month earlier, designer Mariama Diallo of Sincerely RIA posted about their dress popping up. And again, when the designer of Transformations by Tracy on Etsy posted,
"It's a knockoff of my self-lace cami to the T. It's exactly the same."
And heck, over on Instagram, designer Bailey Prado has basically been a one-stop shop for designs to rip off. As the post states, quote, "At Shein Official copied my whole life. There are over 20 of my designs that were directly copied. Having Shein rip off your stuff is apparently a rite of passage in the fashion world. Congrats, you've made it. Now too bad we're ripping off your livelihood." Obviously, this is going way beyond just being inspired by other people's work. This is a case of Shein blatantly ripping off other designers. I mean, you can see it, right? From the actual outfits down to the aesthetics of the marketing. So how is it that Shein keeps getting away with it without facing a torrent of lawsuits that would bankrupt the company? And more than that, can you actually copyright fashion? That's the mystery that I, fashion detective Matt Pat, am here to solve today. Folks, it's time for a full frontal foray into the fascinating and ferociously fraught world of fashion fraud. First off, let's be clear about one thing. There are lots of different kinds of illegal copying that can happen when it comes to clothing. And as such, there are lots of different routes you can pursue when it comes to potential protection. For instance, there are those companies that have designs that are covered by patents. This is extremely common for it to happen with certain kinds of performance athletic wear. For example, if Nike suddenly comes up with some kind of amazingly innovative shoe that makes the runner able to reach sonic levels of speed, they're going to consider that a new invention and apply for a patent to protect it. Patents largely break down into one of two categories: utility and design. Utility patents generally cover new inventions, like a faster shoe, a purse with a stronger, more durable strap, or other things that affect how useful an item is. Design patents, on the other hand, cover things on the basis of appearance. But it's notoriously difficult to get these sorts of things for clothing items specifically, since they have to prove that they're completely unique from any other existing design in the history of ever. They can also not be seen as an improvement over something that existed previously. Even major brands like Gucci tend to only hold patents for their accessories, mainly watches here in the US, while needing to go over to Europe to patent their bags. In fact, according to Christiane Schumann Campbell, writing for the Legal Intelligencer, quote, "Apparel designs are generally deemed unpatentable." So does this then mean it's it's open season for any company looking to rip off someone else's fashion design? Not quite. You see, while apparel fashion designs are hard to protect with patents, they can be considered artistic expressions that can be protected by copyright. The same way we protect other forms of creative expression in books, movies, music, and online video. But that then opens up a whole suite of questions. What constitutes original artistic expression? Is the shape of a simple t-shirt something that can be copyrighted? Probably not, but then what about the pattern of the colors on that t-shirt? Or the design that's printed on the front? At what point does something become an original work in the field of clothing? And then from there, what about being inspired by other people's work? Like with any other creative field, fashion design involves a lot of gray area, with people taking inspiration from other designs to incorporate into their own looks, whether it's something as simple as using the same color or going as far as to imitate or yes, even copy certain elements and inserting them into other pieces. An oversized sleeve, an interesting neckline, a dropped hem, a little bit of color blocking.
In 2002, Oscar de la Renta did a collection of cerulean gowns, and then cerulean quickly showed up in the collections of 8 different designers.
It's a well-known thing that by putting your design out into the world, people can, and if it's good, will take...
Never got copyrighted from copying my girlfriend. Okay. And I won't. I protect her from copyright. No good.
Inspiration from it. That's just how it goes. But in the world of fashion, where does taking creative inspiration end and copyright violation begin? Speaking of legal actions, I might be making the enemy of some big companies with this episode, so please hit that subscribe button so they see that we theorists are many and not to be trifled with. Did you click it? Great. Thank you. I was worried for a second there that I was going to have to take on Shein all by myself. Now that that's settled, let's get back to copyright, shall we? The simplest example of illegal copyright in fashion is anything that involves a logo or printed graphic. If I make a pair of shoes with a Nike swoosh on it, or a shirt with Mickey Mouse sitting pretty in the center of my chest, it's pretty clear that I'm...
That what got me loving and getting into my girlfriend. Her shoes. I'm just kidding. I mean, her shoes are bought. No good. But everything else is too. Not just footwear.
Not just taking creative inspiration from these brands. What I'm doing is more like selling a counterfeit or bootlegged version of the product. That is pretty darn cut and dry copyright violation. However, copyright only covers things that are considered artistic expression. And according to the U.S. Copyright Office's official website, clothing is not artistic. It falls under a different category that's known as useful articles. Quote, a useful article is an object having an intrinsic utilitarian function. Examples are clothing, furniture, machinery, dinnerware, and lighting fixtures. Copyright does not protect the mechanical or utilitarian aspects of such works of craftsmanship. So things like shape, material, texture, thickness, stretch, breathability, basically anything that affects how a garment feels or helps it serve its purpose are all considered to be parts of function and not artistic expression. This is why a skirt like Cassie's is hard to copyright, while something like Lady Gaga's iconic dress made of raw meat is easy. One is made to serve a function, the other was used to make an artistic statement. And when you look at what Cassie's calling out in her post, they also used a mesh fabric material as the tutu-like overskirt, they had an outside pocket on the leg, that they had the same ties on the high-rise waistband. These are all things that fall under that umbrella of useful articles. And by now, you might be starting to see the real problem here with this case. Clothing exists in this nebulous space where it's not useful enough to be counted as an invention worthy of a patent, but it's also not creative enough to be copyrightable. Basically, if you're in the business of copying other people's work, fashion design exists in the perfect sweet spot for you, at least legally speaking, which makes it a big old sour spot for anyone who's trying to avoid having their hard work ripped off. As Julie Zerbo of the Fashion Law blog put it, quote, makes for a pretty messy and not straightforward reality. The reality is, in most cases, it's perfectly legal to knock off a dress design. According to her, many companies have mastered the art of copying just enough to make their knockoff design look like the thing it's designed to imitate without copying any of the elements that would be legally protected. This is probably why a lot of countries have laws that lay out more specific legal protections for fashion design specifically, and why a number of fashion designers here in the US have lobbied Congress to meet the legal standards that exist in countries like France, Italy, and the UK. For example, the European Union has the Designs Protection Directive, which protects, quote, the appearance of the whole or a part of a product resulting from the features of the lines, contours, colors, shapes, texture, or its ornamentation. This kind of wider spreading copyright law is what let Yves Saint Laurent sue Ralph Lauren over a vaguely similar dress back in 1994 for counterfeiting unforgiving and disloyal competition. Look at these two dresses you see on screen right now. Do you think it was copying? I mean, you can kind of see the similarities, but it wasn't that close. So, what's your guess then? Do you think the lawsuit was upheld in court? Well, unbelievably, it was. Yves Saint Laurent won the case, and it's nowhere near the exact dupe that we're talking about with Cassie and Shein here. So, is that then Cassie's answer here? Leave LA and move to a European country that takes legal protections for their fashion designs more seriously? Yes, kinda is the solution. At least, if we were only talking about the clothes. But we're not just talking about the clothes. If you were paying attention at the beginning of the episode, you'll remember that it wasn't just the clothes all of the designers, including Cassie, were accusing Shein of copying. It was also the marketing. And while fashion designs may be almost impossible to cover through copyright, protecting images is a whole different ballgame. Let's look at the evidence again. On the left, we have Cassie's original images from her POPFLEX website, and on the right, we have the images that Shein used to market their version. As Cassie herself notes, the details just line up. Both are demonstrating the pocket using specifically an iPhone, both in a similar pose and with similar cropping. Both show a similar looking model doing a similar pose, and both models are wearing similar styles of athletic tops. The backgrounds, the lighting, the visual composition of the images, all of it glaringly similar. As Cassie notes here on the blog, the point here is to specifically make people think about her original when they see Shein's images. Quote, they chose an Asian model so that once one of their ads pop up, people will subliminally associate the Shein skirt with me modeling the pirouette skirt in my viral video. And boom, add to cart. It really does seem to be what Shein's going for here. Again, let's go back to the many examples highlighted by designers like Bailey Prado and Mariama Diallo to see the lengths that they're going to in order to make the ad for the knockoff look more like the real thing. Each and every time Shein's replicating everything from the background, to the pose, to the skin tone, to the body type of the on-camera talent. It's almost like they're trying to trick you into thinking that the Shein ad you're looking at is an ad for the same thing that you saw in a viral Instagram post last week, not a hastily made knockoff that's intentionally marketed to look like the real deal. Anyway, current copyright law requires you to show that the infringing images demonstrate substantial similarity. And my totally amateur, definitely not actual legal advice opinion, these two images seem to be substantially similar, as do these, and these, and these. What's more, the courts look at whether the two images are so similar that the only possible explanation could be the person who made the second image, being Shein's version, had access to the first image and was intentionally trying to replicate certain elements. And that definitely seems to be the case here. This then evolves from a mere case of copyright infringement. It becomes a case where the Federal Trade Commission could get involved. Yeah, the same FTC that wants to make sure that every influencer is disclosing when they're hashtag sponsored also cares a lot about ads that are intentionally designed to mislead the consumer. And Shein knows this, which is why when the internet decides to rally together and support these smaller designers and bring attention to what Shein's doing, Shein pulls the designs from the website as if they never happened. And they're not just pulling those designs down for legal reasons either. They're doing it for the PR. The rise of Shein has been mostly thanks to Gen Z. See, their target demographic is women under 25. And while these Gen Z shoppers are definitely budget conscious and thus drawn to Shein's low prices, Gen Z shoppers tend to be ethically conscious as well. They're consumers who care about how their products were made. Are they sustainable? Are they authentic? Well, those right there are two tests that Shein fails hard. Don't think that I forgot about the giant OSHA elephant in the room that I mentioned at the top of the episode. A recent undercover documentary by UK Channel 4 reported that the workers who spend all day cranking out Shein products in China really do spend all day cranking out Shein products. Work in 16-hour workdays and only 1 day off per month, all for a paycheck of around $572 a month. Now, China's already famous for having some grueling work hours, but according to CEICdata.com, the average Chinese worker clocks in at about 9.58 hours a day and earns about $1,393 a month. That is an alarming difference from the numbers that are coming out of Shein's factories. Maybe I should do a whole episode about how bad Shein is. Let me know down in the comments if that's an episode of Style Theory that you'd like to see done in the future. For now, we need to focus on how to help the designers that are at the center of this issue. In short, fashion designers need the support of better laws. Laws made to keep their work.
I mean, that would be nice to make into style theory, so yeah. Maybe we could say that, maybe, yeah.
Safe without the hoops and price tags that only big brands can navigate. And I hope it happens soon, because for too long, Shein's gotten away with stealing from other designers, taking the work that they've put hours and hours of time into and turning it into a cheaper imitation. And while Shein might not have to worry about designers going after them in court, this time they might have bitten off more than they could chew. When you go after a creator with over 8 million subscribers and 2.3 million Instagram followers, people start to notice. They start to spread the word about your underhanded business practices. And I am more than happy to raise that alarm and help spread that word. Shein 100% deserves to be called out for their actions on social media, in the courtroom, in your day-to-day life with people around you who are buying from this website. This isn't just their one-time whoopsie. They've been doing this intentionally and repeatedly for years. But who knows? Maybe this time is the time that they flew too close to the sun.
Back in 2021, Cassie, in the early days of POPFLEX, way before it ever appeared on Taylor Swift, announced her brand new design, the Pirouette Skort. It went into production in October and then live for sale the following August, and it quickly sold out. As part of her promotion, Cassie posted to her IG the details of how she designed this instant bestseller. Amazing, right? Well, yes and no. This kind of massive success can attract the attention of bad actors looking to profit from your hard work, which leads us to January of 2023. On the 5th, Cassie brings back her Skort to her website, and 23 days later, so does Shein. Uh-oh. At this point, Cassie had very few options. You see, owning a clothing design is extremely difficult and very expensive. In the US, fashion designs exist in this kind of nebulous space where it's not useful enough to count as an invention worthy of a regular patent and not creative enough to be copyrighted. This is why fashion dupes are so easy to come by. There are no laws out there defending designers. And again, it's expensive to try.
Well, yeah, that's true. There's not really any laws.
As the fashion law blog put it, it makes for a pretty messy and not straightforward reality. In most cases, it's perfectly legal to knock off a dress design, or in this case, a Skort. By February of 2023, the Skort was removed from Shein's site, and the company and POPFLEX appear to have settled things. Until June of that same year, when the Skort miraculously reappeared on Shein's site. You know, despite the company allegedly saying that they only sold 28 units the previous time. Besides, they were a marketplace like Amazon. They couldn't possibly be held responsible for what other people did or sold on their website. Sure, Jam. This sparked yet another set of posts from Cassie calling out the injustice of the situation. And lucky for her, karma came through. Despite the difficulty, cost, and legal circus of US patent law, on January 16th, 2024, with the help of an intellectual property team of lawyers, Cassie was granted the official patent for her Pirouette skirt. Happy birthday indeed. This patent proved that, according to the law, her design was unique and had enough new utility and novelty in its creation that she alone had the right to produce it and had the right to take down any copies. What followed was win after win. Taylor, creators in fashion, Target, but with these high highs come the lowest of lows. On February 17th, 2025, Cassie posted about her designs being stolen again, but this time not by Shein.
So, who is it that sent me this legal letter on my birthday? CM Law. Who is it that they're representing? GoTex, which is the label on the dupe Skort, which is being sold at
Nordstrom Rack, which is owned by
the Nordstrom Corporation.
Man, Cassie really has some eventful birthdays. But now that you know how we got here, the big question is why? Why is this even a problem at all? You see, legally speaking, Cassie did everything right. As the holder of the patent for this design, she has every right to reach out to brands that produce a duplicate. So that's the first piece of evidence we need to examine. Was the GoTex Skort a direct copy of the patented design? Well, when you search the Nordstrom Rack site, the Skort is nowhere to be found. But never fear, because my superpower is niche online shopping, and I found the sold-out listing pretty fast. Nothing is ever really deleted on the internet, theorists. Remember that. Let's look at the two side by side. Visually, the similarity is pretty obvious. The silhouette, the waist tie, the tutu leg skirt, it all looks the same.
They didn't even bother to try to change one thing about it. They couldn't even pick their own colors. These are the same colors as on the POPFLEX website.
So let's take a look at what is actually protected by the patent. You know, maybe GoTex skirted by with just enough difference. Cassie's patent protects a skirt design that includes a skirt component that has camouflaged pockets and the skirt portion that includes a tiered overlay of that ballerina-inspired fabric and an adjustable waist. Yep, I'd say those are all present on the GoTex version.
and the audacity to call their dupe a one-of-a-kind creation.
Which brings us to what Cassie's rights actually actually are when someone produces and sells a confirmed dupe. Typically, the patent owner, Cassie in this case, sends out a cease and desist to the infringing party, Gotex. For the non-lawyers in the audience, a cease and desist, or CD, is, as the Cornell Law School puts it, a cautionary letter sent to an alleged wrongdoer describing the alleged misconduct and demanding that the alleged misconduct be stopped. And it provides notice that legal action may and will be taken if the conduct in question continues. Which basically translates to Cassie requesting that Gotex stop selling the item and remove it from their website and stores before any real legal action is taken. This is important to understand given what's about to go down. What Cassie did was the standard of pretty much any brand when their legal IP is being co-opted for someone else's profit. It's similar to why, before the copyright expired in 2024, if you tried to sell something with Mickey Mouse on it, Disney and its lawyers would be right there with their own cease and desist. It's a powerful tool, one that is invaluable to a small business owner suddenly thrust into the spotlight. Yeah, remember how we said Taylor Swift wore the POPFLEX pirouette score? That video not only gave Cassie and her company priceless organic promotion, it also brought out all those companies hoping to cash in on the hype with dupes. Sorry, Glinda. Being popular isn't always the privilege that you think it is. Now, back to the Gotex situation and why we had to completely upend the video that we had planned for this week to talk about this situation. According to Cassie's original post, Gotex did not agree to take down their dupe. Instead, they pushed back.
I am now being threatened with a lawsuit for speaking up about it, when they are the ones infringing my patent.
Yes, according to the post, if Cassie continued to try to enforce her patent, she would be facing a potential lawsuit against her. What? They can do that? Well,
I mean, hey, a possibility. Okay. Let go.
yeah, kinda. Where Cassie had the law of the patent on her side, Gotex had its own way to try to reverse their roles in this situation. As shown in the screenshots from Cassie's story, if her company, referred to in the documents as Oh Gorgeous, which is the parent company of both POPFLEX and Blogilates, if her company continued to try and enforce its legal patent, Gotex would file claims for unfair competition and tortious interference with business. Yikes. That sounds pretty bad. But what does it really mean? To put it in non-lawyer speak terms, Gotex is alleging that by enforcing her patent, Cassie and her company are hurting their business, which is a weird flex, but okay, let's look at how Gotex legally thinks that they're in the right, starting with the unfair competition. This means that Cassie's company has an unfair advantage over Gotex's brand that they're
I am legally in the right of my girlfriend, no care.
exploiting. While unfair competition is an umbrella term for a number of bad business practices, it's most likely that Gotex is alleging that Cassie is spreading a false representation of their scores by saying that it infringed on her patent. Then you have the tortious interference with business claim, which no is not a sequel to the Tortured Poets Department, but a term that means a third party, Cassie, is interfering with an established business relationship, which from their perspective is basically what's happening. Gotex has a contract with Nordstrom to sell their products in Nordstrom stores. If they were made to remove them because of this cease and desist or the negative attention overall, that is a loss of revenue. By enforcing the patent, Cassie is, to Gotex anyway, creating irreparable harm to their relationship with the Nordstrom brand and their brand overall.
They are going to sue me for lying and also for getting in the way of them making money. Are you kidding me?
No, Cassie, I am not. Legally, you did everything right, and everything that we actually recommended that you do. In our previous episode about Cassie's clash with Shein over a similar dupe situation, we went through all of the legal options available to Cassie when it comes to protecting her design. In the end, we recommended she try to acquire a design patent, and she did. In the US, that's basically the biggest power move a clothing company can pull off. So why did it fail? Because that's what's happening here. Despite doing
Why did I fail? I fell into my girlfriend's arms. No.
Everything she needed to do by the letter of the law to protect her intellectual property. And despite winning battle after battle with previous dupes, Cassie could still lose the war. But why? Well, from Gotex's perspective, Cassie is a small fish in the retail game. POPFLEX is a tiny e-commerce brand sold straight to consumers with only one retail relationship IRL to its name, whereas Gotex is an international brand that's been in the game since 1956. They have the deals to sell their items in multiple brick and mortar stores. They are a traditional, old school retail brand. And Cassie is just another influencer pretending to be a business. Yet that proves that Gotex has not been paying attention. Instead of being scared silent, Cassie took to her social media, telling her 3.2 million IG followers about the situation, and leading to Gotex having to shut down their comment sections and turn off their mentions on their IG, which kinda leaves the situation in a standoff, except that we haven't talked about the other player in this situation, Nordstrom itself. Cassie confirmed via her IG stories that the Nordstrom company was also served the original C&D about the dupe, meaning that Nordstrom
C&D. Gotcha. But C&D of this stick. TMI. Sorry guys. Let go.
is aware of the situation, but, as Cassie puts it in her post, has actively decided not to take any responsibility. So the question is, do they have to? Legally, how much responsibility does Nordstrom have over what it sells in its stores? The dupe that started this whole episode was found at a Nordstrom rack, which is a subset of the larger Nordstrom company. It's their second chance option where unsold items from the bigger stores are sold at a huge discount when they cycle out of season, alongside what the company's website refers to as specialty purchase items from many of the top brands at Nordstrom. That's where Gotex comes in. They aren't owned by Nordstrom, they are a vendor, and one of many that sell at both the main and the rack stores. These vendors don't work directly with the CEOs of these big companies. Instead, they make deals with Nordstrom's buyers. This is the traditional way retail fashion works to make it into a department store. Buyers from companies like Nordstrom make deals with brands at showcases, expos, and fashion shows to sell specific pieces in the stores. Think of it as the Devil Wears Prada effect.
You go to your closet and you select, I don't know, that lumpy blue sweater, for instance. What you don't know is that sweater...
I'm not an expo. I'm not an expo, but I am an ex-pro. To my girlfriend, okay.
is not just blue, it's actually cerulean. In 2002, Oscar de la Renta did a collection of cerulean gowns, and it filtered down through the department store. You're wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room.
Now, Miranda clearly did her research, but do Nordstrom's buyers, or any companies for that matter, need to be as thorough? In short, yes. Yes, they do. It's all about a term called contributory infringement, which can loop a secondary party into a patent infringement case. Oh, do we have your attention now, Nordstrom? I hope so, because this is a doozy. In Section 271 of the Patent Act, contributory infringement extends liability not only to an individual infringing party, but also across interconnected parties in the supply chain, which would mean that if this were to go to court and Gotex were indeed found to have infringed upon the POPFLEX patent, Nordstrom could also be in hot water for having acquired, stocked, and sold the infringing product in their stores. Now, maybe Nordstrom thinks this is unlikely to happen. Maybe they think Cassie and Gotex will take each other out and leave Nordstrom Nordstrom in the clear to never get their hands dirty. Maybe they really can just wait it out. Except they can't, because all this has happened before. In May of 2023, Patagonia, a company that specializes in outdoor clothing, gear, and food, sued Nordstrom for allegedly selling thousands of counterfeit Patagonia sweaters and t-shirts through its Nordstrom Rack stores. And this was after Patagonia had already cut ties with Nordstrom as a distributor. Patagonia, like Cassie and her company, started by requesting the stores to pull the items, which, depending on the source, it did or didn't do. But as Neil Saunders, the managing director of Global Data, explained it, while it can be difficult for off-price players to check all merchandise, it is still the job of the buyers to do this. This seems to be a mistake on Nordstrom Rack's part, and could be part and parcel of it taking its eye off the ball in terms of merchandising and buying, which, if true, is likely the same lack of care that we're seeing in this POPFLEX situation. When it comes to the Patagonia case, it took until May of 2024 for the two companies to settle out of court, with no admission of liability for Nordstrom. After the settlement, a spokesperson for Nordstrom made a statement that, at Nordstrom, the quality and integrity of our products is our top priority. We have rigorous standards in place to ensure the authenticity of our products and seek to partner with suppliers that share our commitment to producing quality products through ethical business practices. So then why, barely a year later, is Nordstrom facing the same accusations again? Well, Nordstrom isn't exactly surviving and thriving at the moment. In December of 2024, Nordstrom took its company private, pulling its company shares out of the public stock market in a $6.25 billion deal to try and save its declining business. In this same move, Nordstrom also made big changes to how it curates its products at its Nordstrom Rack locations by increasing the, in its words, penetration of our top performing strategic brands, which is a weird way to say that they are picking their items more selectively to focus on what their customers actually want to buy. Like, say, I don't know, the cute skirt they saw on Taylor Swift? Yet, despite the company actually coming out and saying that the quality and integrity of our products is our top priority, and that they have rigorous standards in place to ensure the authenticity of our products. And yes, saying that they only want to partner with suppliers that share our commitment to producing quality products through ethical business practices, here we are. Nordstrom is staying silent on an issue that they claim is integral to their business. Now, there is another reason that Cassie, Gotex, and yes, maybe even Nordstrom are doing everything they possibly can to not go to court. It is expensive. The average cost of actually going through with a patent lawsuit can land anywhere from $1.5 to $5 million. Heck, even hiring.
But is that necessary for some cases? Probably not. Maybe. It's definitely necessary for my girlfriend to get if someone copyrighted of
Experts to just assess patent damages can cost $100,000 in legal fees alone. So yes, it is understandable that all parties involved do not want to go to court. This is why Gotex allegedly pushed back with the threat of a lawsuit. This is why Nordstrom feels safe to stay silent. None of them expect Cassie to actually go through with pursuing legal action against them. That's why things like cease and desist letters and tortious interference claims exist in the first place. They're the official document ways of saying, come on, do we really need to do this? We all know it's gonna cost us more than we're gonna get. But what both of these traditional brands are forgetting
That's true.
is that they aren't facing off against the same old brands. They have accidentally stumbled into the creator economy. And theorists, that is a whole different kind of battleground. One that is played out in front of a very attentive audience. you can already see the ripple effects. As we mentioned, once Cassie drew attention to the issue, her audience flooded Gotex with enough comments to get them to shut off their mentions and disable comments on their posts. Go over to the Nordstrom Instagram page, and all of the top comments on their recent posts are calling them out on this dupe situation. And here's the thing, Nordstrom isn't even getting the short end of the stick in this situation. For a brand that has been seeing declining sales year after year and that is struggling to stay relevant with consumers both young and old, this controversy could be the lifeboat that they've been searching for if they play their cards right. You see, Cassie is offering them an answer on a silver platter. Partner with her and show that Nordstrom values both small businesses and creators.
You know, the other option is that you could work with me, right? You could sell the real POPFLEX Pure Wet Squirt Nordstrom buyers wherever you are. I would love to give us a second chance. Let's turn this into an enemies to lovers arc.
Now, let's be clear. In this scenario, Cassie definitely benefits, but so does Nordstrom. Not only do they get to tout themselves as the hero helping the underdog win, they gain the support of Cassie's huge following, one that has already proven it will put its money where its mouth is. In 2024 alone, generated over $108 million in revenue. And they just had a hugely successful launch of a brand new exclusive Target line. This is who Nordstrom could be bringing into their stores. This is the power of creators, of their audience, of you. And Nordstrom could have it all. And so could every other brick and mortar retail location. You see, it's not just Nordstrom that these dupes are being sold at. They've been found in TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Bells, and Cassie isn't the only creator out there with this huge audience to offer. All of these retailers could get in on the power of creators if they are willing to evolve. Or they could choose to ignore it and let these kind of situations play out like typical cases, souring a huge audience of powerful shoppers from ever setting foot in their stores again. As Cassie said,
I'll be waiting.
And the clock is ticking. By the end of our last episode, Cassie and Nordstrom were at a bit of a crossroads. Cassie had extended an olive branch saying, hey, just stop selling the dupe, sell my product instead, and we can just let bygones be bygones. To which Nordstrom totally said yes. Everyone made a bunch of money. It was happily ever after. Just kidding. Hey Siri, play This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things by Taylor Swift. Yeah, instead of meeting in the middle, Cassie has basically been going through a legal pinball machine, bouncing back and forth and back and forth and back and forth between all involved parties. And when she did get a response, it was pretty much the worst response that she could have gotten.
Get this NDA. It says that I am not allowed to talk about this story, and that if I do post, that they are going to fine me $250,000.
I have to admit, that was a plot twist I did not expect. Now, there's a lot more to the story, and it's all putting Cassie, her company, and her brand in a very complicated spot. Gotex is basically trying to pull an Ursula and get Cassie to sign away her voice. But should she? I mean, is Gotex even legally able to do this? And is there anything that Cassie can do to end this once and for all? Or is she doomed to drown in red tape forever? Let's break this whole thing down and find out if maybe, just maybe, there is actually a light at the end of this copyright tunnel. The first thing that we need to do is figure out how we went from $0 to $250,000 in the first place. Before posting her first video and a series of Instagram stories discussing the situation, Cassie had been pretty radio silent on the whole thing, despite all the tags and questions from fans who were finding these Pirouette Squirt dupes in stores.
You guys also showed me receipts of that exact Gotex dupe.
During that time, she and her company were working to find a resolution that wouldn't end up in a huge lawsuit. But instead, she says she ended up just being bounced around for months.
And essentially,
It's been a game of hot potato where I'm the potato being tossed around from lawyer to lawyer, corporation to corporation, between the retailer, the vendor, and the manufacturer.
And with no power to make them give her the time of day, Cassie turned to the one place where she held all the power: social media.
did you really think that by threatening to sue me that you'd actually shut me up?
Now, I I can't speak for them, but I can hazard a guess that, yeah, they did. And it worked. After months and months of nothing, Cassie finally got a response from Gotex's lawyers. And you are not ready to hear this. No, really, take a breath with me. Okay, let's go.
Want to hear what the Gotex lawyer actually wrote me instead of apologizing for infringing my patent? Since Gotex did not design, manufacture, or sell any of the products that are alleged to infringe the patent.
Pause. As we discussed in our last episode, these dupes were being sold under the Gotex brand on the websites of these stores. And when there were photos of these dupes found in stores, they had the Gotex tags on them.
It literally says, products offered by Gotex are one-of-a-kind creations.
I'm so confused. Like, should I believe the lawyers or the hang tag?
Now here's the thing. If Gotex had responded and said something like, hey, bye guy, despite the small amount of visual similarities between our two squirts, I didn't actually infringe on your patent. We good, bro? We would be having a completely different conversation right now. Gotex has every right to try and claim that. Try being the key word. They would still likely have to prove at some point that it didn't violate Cassie's patent. But to be like, nah, we didn't even make that product? Like, whose name is on the website? Whose name is on the tag? Is it hot in here? Oh, one sec. Sorry, I forgot to turn off my gas light. It really makes it hot in here. What was he saying? Cassie, wanting this whole situation to just be done and over, sent a settlement agreement to Gotex to finally put the drama to bed. With the help of her lawyers, of course, because you should always use a lawyer. Not that I think that you are going to go into some big legal battle with a giant corporation, but if you do, use a lawyer. Anyway, I know a settlement agreement can sound pretty serious and scary, but from a legal perspective, it's pretty normal. Not a big deal. This is basically the legal equivalent of Cassie going, hey bestie, I don't want to go through this whole big legal drama, so just stop selling the score, pay me a fair royalty, and we'll just be done with this, okay? To which Gotex said, of course, Bessie, I got you, right? Wrong. Hey Siri, play Denial is a River by Doechii. Yeah? No, they didn't do that. In fact, they did the opposite of that and did something that no one really could have expected to happen. They didn't accept, reject, or even counter Cassie's settlement. Instead, they sent over a non-disclosure agreement, or NDA, that Cassie must sign before they'll even continue the conversation. Listen, NDAs are pretty common in any place where a lot of sensitive information is going to be exchanged. I've signed plenty of NDAs in my day, and it's not really a huge deal. However, this NDA is not that. It isn't trying to keep everyone locked in, it's trying to keep Cassie and her voice locked down. According to Cassie's video, this document states that should she sign, Cassie cannot talk publicly about any of these negotiations. And if she does, she will be fined $250,000. Yes, $250,000 just for talking about the situation. Needless to say, Cassie didn't sign, and for good reason. In this scenario, Gotex is requiring Cassie to sign this NDA in order for the negotiations to continue, or start for that matter. Up until the posting of her first video response, Gotex hasn't exactly appeared willing to talk by Cassie's account. So who's to say that should Cassie sign this NDA in good faith, that doing so will open this previously closed door, that Gotex won't just turn around and continue to deny that they are at fault. Again, in this fictitious scenario, Cassie would have signed away her one way of fighting back against these big corporations, her voice. She would be well and truly Ursula. Say it with me, friends. Do not make the same mistakes as the Little Mermaid. And if anything has been true during this whole POPFLEX copyright saga, whether it was with Shein, Nordstrom, or Gotex, Cassie's voice is her biggest weapon. And Gotex is making a big claim against anything and everything Cassie has used her voice to say. They are claiming defamation. Dun dun dun. You see, that little letter that Gotex sent included a very interesting request.
We request that your client remove all defamatory remarks that she has published.
But that's not all. According to the screenshots of the letter from Cassie's video, they also requested that Cassie refrain from encouraging others to defame Gotex. This is likely due to the large backlash from Cassie's fans, both towards Gotex and the stores carrying their scores. And they cap this all off by saying, while Gotex has so far resisted exercising its legal rights in this matter, that patience does not extend forever. Now, legally, all I can say about that is, oof. Patience aside, what we actually need to pay attention to from this letter are these two little words, defame and defamatory. Defamation is when someone says or transmits, like, posting online, a statement about someone else that is one, false, and two, hurts that person's reputation. But is that actually what Cassie's doing with her videos and her posts? Let's look a little closer. Generally, the courts in the US look for 4 criteria to determine if defamation has actually taken place. 1, you have to say or post the alleged defamatory remarks to some sort of third party. Which, yes, Cassie's Instagram with over 3.2 million followers would count as. The second is whether what was said is actually damaging to someone's reputation or causes them some sort of harm. Which, considering how Gotex has had to shut off comments on its Instagram and how Nordstrom has been flooded with tons of angry messages, could be argued here. And even if that wasn't the case, most states argue that if you accuse someone of a crime or corrupt act, like say stealing or infringing on a patent, it pretty much checks the cause harm box automatically. Things are not looking so great for Cassie. She is currently 0 for 2 on all accounts, which means it all comes down to our final 2 points. And this is where it starts to get a little, complicated. In order to prove defamation, Gotex would also have to show that Cassie's statements were really false, and that she either knew they were false or was negligent in determining if they were false. Most of the time when you state your opinion, whether it's good or bad, you are not committing defamation, even if that opinion is based on something false. But when you start to say things that are false, that appear or claim to be fact, that is when you start to get into some legal trouble. Legally speaking, there is a big difference between saying, I think Gotex is infringing on my patent, and saying Gotex is infringing on my patent. But that's only if the statement is false. If it was found that Gotex did infringe on Cassie's patent, then there would be no case for defamation. Listen, you can go damage someone's reputation as much as you want, as long as the things that you're saying are actual facts. Only problem is that you and I can't actually determine if Gotex really stole from Cassie's design, despite how obvious the answer might seem based on the photos. The only one who can legally decide that is the courts. Which brings me to the final point I want to talk about today. What happens now? As of the time that I'm recording this episode, which is August 29th, 2025, this is where we stand. Cassie asked for a settlement, Gotex sent the NDA, and Cassie said in no uncertain terms,
Let me tell you one thing. The more you tell me to shut up, the louder I'm going to yell. So, no, I'm never going to sign your stupid NDA. You're never going to silence me, and you can't buy me for any amount of money.
To be honest, there are so many different ways that this situation could go. One party could kneel to the other, they could sit in a stalemate for literal years, or they could go into business together and everyone could live happily ever after. Highly unlikely, but hey, it could happen. Yet, despite all of those possibilities, there does seem to be just one most likely outcome. And this is where I want to remind you that despite knowing all the words to Legally Blonde the movie and the musical by heart, I am not actually a lawyer, and this is not actually legal advice. Okay. At this moment, Cassie is in a stalemate with Gotex. If she signs the NDA, she loses her biggest way to fight back and move the needle on this whole situation. Remember, she went through months of no solid responses until she posted her video, and Gotex has no incentive to accept Cassie's settlement. This, at least from this non-lawyer's point of view, leaves Cassie with only one real option: sue Gotex. Let me be crystal clear about this. A lawsuit is the last thing anyone in this situation should actually want
That's true, no cap.
to happen. It comes with huge risks, both professionally and personally. If Cassie won,
Yeah.
It's unlikely that the money she'd get from Gotex would cover her legal fees. And if she lost, not only would Cassie end up paying damages to Gotex, but it would open up her business to more and more copyright infringement with no way of fighting back. Because in the end, that is what all of this comes down to. How infringing is the infringement? Cassie has fought back against dozens of dupes, and those are only the ones that we know of. And she did it all with the power of her patent. If she went to court and lost this case to Gotex, the truth is that suddenly that patent becomes nothing more than a fancy piece of paper against all the other would-be dupes out there, past, present, and future. But trying to avoid it is what landed us here. Remember when I said that despite all the possibilities, there really only seemed like one plausible option? Well, in all likelihood, a court is probably never going to rule on whether or not Gotex actually infringed on POPFLEX's design. Why? Around 98% of all civil cases in the US end in a settlement long before they ever go to trial. More often than not, the two sides find a way to work out some sort of agreement to end the lawsuit before it goes to the hands of a judge or jury. Which is what makes this situation so infuriating. Because, according to Cassie, she offered Gotex a settlement agreement, which is the exact same place that we would be if they had gone through with the lawsuit and gone through the courts in the first place. So, the question is, how do you break a stalemate that seems unbreakable? Well, Cassie should do what she has been doing, which is stay patient and let her voice, the voice of her fans and followers and fellow creators, fan the fire under Gotex's pot. If Cassie never signs, and let's be real, she's pretty much said she never will, the only way that Gotex comes out of this situation with any sort of good reputation is to come to the table and make a deal. Hey Siri, play Good Luck Babe by Chapel Roan. Oh, wow, look at you! You made it to the end of this epic journey. Like, congrats, that is hard to do. But since you're here, I know just what you should watch next. We just hosted our second annual Creators in Fashion event featuring POPFLEX as well as a ton of other amazing creators. And you can watch it right now by clicking the box on the screen. And remember, if you're looking to put your health first, scan the QR code on screen to get started with ZocDoc and book your first appointment today. Thanks again to ZocDoc for sponsoring this episode.
Okay, nice. Thank you for giving me a video to react to, Style Daily. Also, you should go and look up POPFLEX No Kid. Or ZocDoc. Okay, ZocDoc. Sorry, you should go look at ZocDoc if you want. No kid. I'm not sponsored for doing it. Hang on, guys. Okay, sorry about that. I will end the live stream now. Well, not live stream, reaction. Anyway, if you like the reaction, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Everyone, make sure to. Also, hit that bell icon so you get notified of updates on Date and Bulldogs. Until next time, Date and Bulldogs, and until next time, out.